informal work session of the Board of Commissioners, and it's really just to, and it could take 5 minutes, it could take a little longer, but it's an informal discussion for finalizing the budget for fiscal year 1920. So Wednesday afternoon, as anytime you have a transition, it's better to over-communicate. And as staff and I were working through finalizing the agenda for the board meeting next week, obviously we have the budget ordinance to adopt. And rather than wait to the work session before to discuss the budget and see if we want to make any comments, whatever, let's have the discussion now. Let's crystallize everything for staff and move forward. The situation or where we are status-wise as a group, we've had the public hearing. The public hearing has presented the budget ordinance and had a discussion about the budget ordinance. The budget ordinance is the statutory requirement. The budget document is the story that we tell to the town. We don't have that aspect yet, and we really need to define how we want that to come forward. But today, I want to make sure that we don't have any issues with the budget ordinance, because if we do, and if we want to change anything, then we're going to have to go through and do a lot of work next week, because we go back and do a public hearing because we've changed it and all this stuff. So number one, wanted to make sure that we're okay with the statutory part, the budget ordinance, the modified one that was presented at the last business meeting that included the 2 additional police hires, and it added the dollar amounts in the can't think of the name, the funding set aside for the compensation and benefits and classification study. We know we're going to have to make some budget amendments rather than try to change the budget now. We know we're going to have to make some budget amendments in the July timeframe as things are uncovered work-wise, and my suggestion is to leave those as is as they come forward. Here's an example. Staff is continuing to do the work that they have on their plate. We have on the board meeting on Tuesday night the turnover of streets in Lawson, and a little dilemma popped up. We can't accept those with the speed limit because we got mismatch of speed limits around the town. And after a neighborhood meeting that staff had, the realization came to light that we can go ahead, staff can go ahead and make a recommendation, work with Charlie on the legal side of it, and fix the gap we have in speed limits across the town, across all the neighborhoods, and get them set at 25 miles an hour. Right now, we don't have anything other than the accepted state speed limit in the majority of our neighborhoods. Doing that would require a heavy burden on public services and Todd's team, and the implementation of signs and other devices to actually get speed limit up to speed. Our speed limit signs and our speed limits and our ordinances all aligned on a rather quick basis. That was not something that they were thinking of when they built the budget. It popped out of user requirements, what I would call user requirements, neighborhood requirements, the Lawson requirements, et cetera, and all of it's coming to a head. They plan to bring that forward as an ordinance once they go through the legal process with Mr. Buckley. But that's an example of things we know, but we don't need to touch now. But we know they're coming, and they're going to be amendments to this. There may be others that you thought of. My recommendation, I'll throw it open to discussion because we're not deciding anything. I don't see any reason why we can't pass the budget ordinance as is, and then get on with defining how we communicate better in the July time frame, and I'll come back to that. But does anybody have any issue with the budget ordinance as it was presented right now? Because if not, then staff has clear guidance and we can move ahead rather quickly. they asked us to make sure we're clear on that. So we're not running and scrambling at the last minute. That's why we were having this meeting. Is everybody comfortable with the budget ordinance as presented?
So this $100,000 for traffic calming implementations is based upon the signage and the changing and all that.
That'll be something that will come in the July timeframe, yeah.
That will come with the explanation in July.
We will come with an ordinance. Yeah, and a work plan, yeah. It was put in, it was shared with you as an example of things as staff keeps going. They're coming up with these things that we're going to have to react to. They're not defined anywhere. Hadn't been planned, and now it's there, and that's a good thing. And it probably saves 6 months of work for them as they do all of it at once rather than every neighborhood one by one by one. But there may be others of those. I used it as an example of actions we're going to have to take in July, not now. Does anybody have any objection with the ordinance?
This is just for signs, not like speed bumps or anything.
We're not even, they would come forward with an ordinance. The whole budget aspect of that is for traffic calming when it comes forward. Whatever they designate that budget for. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about the budget ordinance. That's an example of stuff that's going to have to come forward rather quickly, and we're going to have to react to.
I have no questions.
You're comfortable
I have
with
no
the budget
problems.
ordinance?
Yeah,
You're
I'm
comfortable
good.
Are you comfortable with the budget ordinance as presented?
So there'll be, we can do changes it later, or is this like locking in $100,000 for?
We're not even touch, the $100,000 isn't in it. It's the budget ordinance that was presented. That was separate as an example of there's things that are coming, but we don't want to put them in now.
Okay,
So are you comfortable with the budget ordinance as presented?
yes.
Okay, are you comfortable? All right, Kelly and Tammy, we're comfortable with it, and so we can move forward as is. We don't have to worry about any additional meetings or anything. So with that, we as a board also discussed, and we did last year, we had meetings in July and August about what are the various departments, what are their goals for the year, and what are their exact projects. As you recall, the budget ordinance really doesn't, and the message is a financial model. It isn't the communications, and it isn't the operational and the vision part of it. What staff has asked us for is, what is it that you would like to see as a budget document, not ordinance, but document that they can work on with us during the month of July, so we can communicate it to the public. While we only had one public comment, that comment was consistent with some of the things that we discussed. We don't have enough specificity in the budget. So the next part of this discussion, very simply, is how would we like to guide staff in the preparation of a budget document? My suggestion to everyone, I don't know who looked at what, but my suggestion to everyone is that we go to and we begin to, or we go back to where we were, the Government Finance Officers Association, as a standard template for the communication aspect of it. I think there's 25 or 30 municipalities in North Carolina that have won the Distinguished Award because they fill all that stuff in. It talks to, from a table of contents standpoint, basically it explains the town. You have a community profile. You talk about the departments. You talk about what you accomplished, and you talk about what you plan to accomplish by department. And it becomes the communication vehicle. What communications has said, and the operational vehicle as well. What communications is hoping we can do is, if we can get that format, they would like to publish infographics in the magazines and the posts that we have coming out in July, so we can communicate a message, a stronger message to the town as to what we've accomplished and what we plan to accomplish, and then report on a regular basis coming forward in the next several months. So I'm going to throw it open to discussion on this, because staff can't do anything if we don't give them some guidance. My suggestion is we use what other municipalities are doing and say, and we could probably use the template we used in 2017, because I think that was the template that was used when two previous managers kind of worked on it together. I guess there was the three, the interim was in there as well. And go back to that kind of communication and maybe use that as an outline. But I'm going to throw it open to discussion here.
Are you talking about capital improvement projects that was the amount that's been?
I'm not talking about a particular budget item. I'm talking about a communication vehicle that goes from what's your budget summary, both capital and operational? What is your community profile? What are your various funds? We have some of that in there. What are your department goals and specific projects you're going to work on? You've talked about sidewalks and trails. How many miles of sidewalks, trails are we going to do? How many roads are we going to do? What are some of the things? What are the police department's goals with the DARE program? Todd's got growth in sanitation. He's got miles of. He's going to do traffic calming, signs, and speed limits, etc. Again, communicate. Parks and Rec. Dina's going to have a whole bunch of things that hopefully we would get to in terms of, we've got a project of this magnitude coming. Yes, it comes out of capital, or yes, it comes out of the operating budget, but actually communicate a picture to the town in a written document of here's what we hope to, here's what we've done, and here's what we hope to accomplish. It would include all funding elements. Yeah, this is an open discussion. Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Excuse me. Huntersville's budget last year had a section that I thought was useful called Transformational Transportation Initiatives. And they use that to discuss all the road and transportation they're upgrading and what they're going to be working on in the coming year. So I thought something that lays out what's being maintained and what projects are already on the books, how many miles you're going to repave, if you're adding sidewalks, all of that under one sort of easy to understand section would be useful.
I think it would be good to, I know Dina will be bringing forward as far as parks, but to have a whole section of things we want to do, what phases we want to work on as part of that.
Okay.
I was just going to say, anything about the Public Works building?
So we submitted a list of, so with an outline, in my opinion, everything that we put in that list of questions back to the manager, that we got a 32-page document back, is fair game to put in there under one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Public Works is one of them, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we all agreed unanimously that's a highest priority, one of the highest priorities for this year. I did spend a little bit of time with the CFO from Union County regarding that one parcel of land as to what they're expecting back. So that's for another discussion time. But to that point, we have to acquire land and get that moving. I think we should expect from Kurt, what do we, income, expense, and goals, and et cetera, for the corner lot Nivens Price as well. personal opinion is we should show the YMCA Waxhaw Fields in there as an item, just like we should show the WAA, and wherever you land with the agreement, Dina, and I know that's coming soon, but the agreement and what that impact is in terms of both from a programming and a barter quid pro quo, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of the funds, because what's very interesting is, and I don't think most people use this, the Waxhaw Athletic Association has a volunteer pay scale that begins to calculate how things get shared and stuff like that, and that's an arrangement that the public ought to be aware of. So I think we weave all those things in. In terms of communicating them. But are we up for the task? Because we're going to ask staff to do some work across the board. We can pick one of these as an outline, and then they can work with us. But I for one, think we have to, even though it was one request, we all said we need to communicate a better message in terms of what we're doing, and with specificity, roads being another one. Identifying what roads we will complete, not just what are in design. What are we going to complete this year? What intersection? What project? Let's put it out there, and then let's go get it. The challenge we have right now is we have a financial document, and it's great, and it's a great model, but people don't know what we're doing. They just know we're spending money. We've got to get to a communication vehicle, and then where we're communicating on a regular basis. Do you have a question?
And just an additional
Saw a
comment.
hand.
Yeah, sorry. One of the things that I noticed right away is that the towns that I looked at all include their mission,
Yep.
vision, and values, and we don't have that anywhere. And that should be at the beginning, and then everything should be tied back to that. How do our current capital projects tie back to that? How do our specific challenges tie back to that? And some that I read did have a section that said, these are our transportation challenges, or these are our, Parks and Rec or culture challenges, and here's how we're going to try to face those challenges.
Well, and I think it would give this board a good opportunity to discuss what updating we need to do to that mission, as well as strategic initiatives, because it was developed in 2016, or refined in 2016, and so it's always good to refine it I think the going rate is every 3 years. I'm just looking at Carey's, I was looking at Hickory's, I was looking at
I read Carrie's as well, and it was
pretty complete.
well written.
Yeah.
So this document will include all the information that they updated from the last document with the questions that they answered, in addition to, if we're following that specific model and example that you presented, that they will come back with that information for our review to add to or question anything that we feel has been left off, or things that we may still have questions on moving forward.
Yeah, so my personal view on this, after talking with a couple of CFOs on that, Union County has won the award. Hickory has won the award, and you ask them, and they said basically when you build that part, it is a very iterative thing, and until you get it tweaked right, so we could have work sessions for several weeks where they come back and say, here's where the section is. Do you like, dislike, et cetera? It's really an effort to bring everybody together as a team, and then yes, ask the question, hey, that's not what I thought we were going to do. This is what I thought we were going to do. This is the sidewalks that we think we were going to do. We will have surprises. I specifically brought up the traffic calming column because of it was a great work effort by the staff when they went out and met with the neighborhood, and then it happened to be on the board meeting agenda, and it's kind of like, we're just doing this piecemeal. Why don't we attack this problem holistically? Well, bring it forward. Bring the ordinance forward, and we'll figure out how to find the money for it. It's those kind of things. By having this, we'll know more. We'll have it. We'll have it listed, and so absolutely iterative. It doesn't get it approved We don't have to adopt anything. It doesn't get approved until we're ready to approve it. It will also give staff a very good lever and the interim, in the interim, hey, let's report back. Here's the progress we made. Here's what we're doing. Jeff's working on the UDO. Here's the progress we're making on it. Here's the development projects we've had come in. Here's the development projects that are outstanding. Whatever we determine those metrics are, we start to have those things not only communicated to us, but more importantly, communicated to the community as well, which I think is what we all were hinting at. We need that specificity. So are we okay to go forward with that? Because I can tell just by the way Bobby and Chief Ice are looking at it, they're just chomping at the bit to start writing a document, so.
I'm
Just had to
good.
make sure you were listening back there.
I'm good with it.
I think that's a good plan.
Is that, you guys, okay. All right, then Kelly, we will get with you to kind of get a tentative agenda of outline of what this is, so it can come back, you and Matt, because it'll fall in, he's going to regret not being here today. And again, reiterate, this is not in any way, shape, or form a criticism of the financial model, the budget ordinance, because that was well done, and we have a very good budget ordinance to go forward with. Now we just have to define things accordingly and with specifics, so we can take planning to implementation and make some progress. So that was the whole intent, so that staff knew their marching orders, or directional marching orders as we go forward in this time of transition. And the net is, it's not changing. Business as usual with a little bit more emphasis on specificity. So I don't think that's asking too much at all. So any further questions? Discussion? An informal meeting is adjourned.